So if you've got a tune that you're playing, but it doesn't feel that complete, whether it's an instrumental version or you're playing accompaniment and singing, one of the simplest things you can do to start making that tune sound more like a complete arrangement is to add an intro, or an intro and an outro even. And so in this lesson, I want to show you just a few simple steps you can take to add an intro to a song based on the key that it's in and the groove that you're already playing it in. So you want to start with the key you're in and the groove you're in. So if we were playing a blues in E, whether it was a 12-bar blues like C.C. Rider or an 8-bar blues like Trouble in Mind, which I've been talking about on the channel a bunch the last few lessons. If you're in E and you're playing with a steady bass, then you're going to start in E with a steady bass for your intro. And one of the simplest things you can do is just start with the one chord and go, well, can I go somewhere else and come back? Like, could I go from 1 to 4? And make up a little chord progression for yourself. In this case, I'm just playing 2 beats of E and 2 beats of A, and 2 beats of E and 2 beats of A. And the intro, it exists outside the song itself. So as long as you're staying true to the groove and the key of the song, you can really do whatever you want to. So in this case, I've just made up this little thing where I'm going from E to A. That's the first step, is just to sort of pick some territory. And you could go from 1 to 5. You could go from 1 to 6 to 2 to 5. Let's just stick to something simple like 1 to 4, right? And now we don't have to play in open position. We could grab some chords that are maybe a little more interesting. Like we could go up here to get the E7. Here's the 3rd and the flat 7 of E on the 4th and 3rd strings. And from here we can slide down 1 fret to A7 and bring the thumb over to the 5th string. And then, so we could just be going between these 2 chords. But that sounds like we're doing the same thing over and over. What if we had a different E chord to go to the second time? We could go from E7 to A7, and then we could go to this E chord, which is got the 3rd in the bass and then the root and the 5th. But still 6th string, 4th string, 3rd string. And if these chord shapes look at all familiar to you, you may have seen my video a little while back on the 6 Freddie Green voicings that you need to know, and I'll put a link to that down below, because that's where I'm getting these chord shapes from, is from those Freddie Green swing chord voicings. But basically just using any open strings that I can for the bass, and then keeping what those chord voicings call for on the 4th and 3rd strings. So here's E, here's A7, here's E over B, and here's A7. So that's the next step, is just to find some cool voicings, and now we've got a whole 2-bar idea that doesn't sound like we're repeating ourselves quite so much. Now the next thing I can do is start to syncopate those chords, and not a lot, just a little bit, like this. Doing is I'm playing on the and of 1, and then on the and of 2, so 1 and 2 and, but then 3 and 4, I'm just playing right on the downbeat, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then on the downbeat of the E over G sharp, 1, 2 and so that's syncopated as well at the end. So downbeat of 1, the downbeat of 2, but then on the and of 2, bring it up to play the A7, and then the thumb comes in on beat 3. So now that's pretty cool, but it also leaves a little bit of space right at the end, right? 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2. On 3 and 4 of the second bar. And what kind of self-respecting guitar player leaves space? So we could put in maybe like a little bass fill. grabbing the flat third, giving a little bit of a bend up towards the major third, and then the root on the second fret of the fourth string. And that's just on beat 4, I think. Let me check. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and, right? So that's the next step. And that could be all kinds of things. Anything you can fit into a beat, basically. And, you know, if you start alternating those two things, now you get an even broader pattern because it's a 2-bar idea. But if you have a different fill every other time, now it feels like a 4-bar idea. Like that. So finally, we could put a lick in on top. And those licks could be anything too, anything that's short enough to fit into that last, really, and 4 and 1 if you're quick enough. And that 1 is going to come with the pinch. 1 and 2 and 3. And if you can get that pinch to come in on the downbeat and then come in on the and of 1 with those chords, it creates this illusion of all these different things happening at once. And you can, of course, alternate playing licks on the high end with those bass licks. Running. So those are a few steps you can take to start putting together some intros for the songs that you're playing, at least in E, and at least with a steady bass. And of course, you don't have to go through all those steps every time. Like, you could stop off at any point in that process and just go, well, that's pretty cool. I could just vamp my way in with these 2 chords. The point is for it to be flexible and for it to be creative, but for it still to be tied to the main idea of the song that you're working on playing. So if you're interested in more ideas about how to develop your tunes, how to build your repertoire, how to get really good control over that kind of syncopated right hand motion, or just start learning how to improvise on the tunes that you're playing, I encourage you to check out my membership, the Fingerstyle 5, at the link below or the link on screen. If you've got a question or comment about today's lesson, please leave it down below. I would love to hear from you. And as ever, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.